everyone. This project here is a Wilton Bullet Vise. I picked this vise up at Pioneer Park Days in Zolfo Springs, Florida. That event is the little brother to the Florida Flywheelers. The vise was built in 1976, and it's in pretty good condition overall. These vises, as you probably know, are sought after by collectors. Unfortunately, the person who owned this vise before me, they painted up the handles, which is never a good idea, and I'd also like to switch out the serrated jaws for some smooth jaws. So hoping that you're going to enjoy the video, and we'll get this thing cleaned up, and let me turn it around so you can take a better look at it. Okay, so I used a product called aircraft stripper to remove the paint from the vise. I used to use a product called Citrus Strip, but I'm not sure if they changed the formulation on that or what, but the last batch I got of the Citrus Strip really didn't work very well, so I switched over to the aircraft stripper, which is very strong. You have to use protective gear when you use it, but it gets the job done quickly and pretty easily. So I just took the paint off with a stripper and a wire brush. What I noticed once I got the paint off of it is that for some reason parts of the casting are very smooth and parts of the casting are very rough. In the back here, you can see this is almost perfectly smooth here. However, towards the base, it's very, very rough. The swivel base is also very, very rough. The tail piece here is smooth here and it's rough here. So I'm not really sure why somebody went through the trouble of smoothing out one part of the vise and not the other. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over the whole vise with this paint stripping disc right here. This is available from Home Depot. It's about $5. It does a good job of getting off all the rough burrs, things like that. Basically what I want to do is I want to smooth out the finish so that it's not smooth in some parts and rough in other parts. I'm going to begin with this in the drill press over at my father's house, and then once I finish that, I'm going to get in here with the Dremel tool, and I'm going to use the sanding drum, the coarse 60 grit. Those do an excellent job of smoothing out cast iron. The little drums, they don't last a long time, but they do an excellent job of doing what you need to do. So that's going to be the next part of the project, is making the texture of the finish look the same. I realize it's not a piece of jewelry, but nonetheless, if I'm going to go through all the trouble, I want it to look as nice as possible. I mean, most guys, when you go into the garage, they take a lot of pride in it. Why should this be any different? So that's where we're going to go. Okay. Okay. So I've been working on smoothing out these castings. This swivel base was very, very rough originally, and first I hit it with the paint stripping disc, and now I'm in the process of hitting it with the Dremel with the sanding drum. That's a 60 grit drum. They work fantastic for smoothing out metal. You can see this is very nice, very smooth. It takes a little while, and yeah, you do go through a few of those discs to get the job done, but they really do a nice job, and they get into tight spaces pretty well. I still need to do a little bit more work on this side, You can see here it's still rougher here than it is over here. But we'll just keep at it. Going to smooth that out as well as the rest of the vise. Get all the surfaces looking the same before we go to paint again. Okay. Okay, so I've been working on the smoothing out these castings, and in this one here, you can see there's a lot of marks where somebody was beating on this thing with a hammer, as well as somebody was doing some welding, which left some lumps of the welding material on here. So I smoothed that out the best I could, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little Bondo, and I'm going to fill in these big gaps that are in here to give it a smoother appearance. Also, I was doing a little research online and looking at some of the other restoration videos on these vices, and I did notice that some of the other vices had the tail end was smoothed out, and the main body of the vise was a little rougher. So I'm guessing that when they built the vise, after they put the tail stock on the main body, somebody went along with a big belt sander and just smoothed the whole thing out. And it just so happens that the person that did this one went a little overboard. So anyways, now I'm going to mix up some hardener, and I'm going to put some Bondo on here, and we'll continue along. To talk about the handles of the vise, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use Johnson's paste wax on the handles themselves. This product, it dries to a nice hard finish. It won't chip off as if I would have clear coated them. What I did was I clear coated the housing but not the handles. I'm just going to use a little paste wax on there to prevent any rust from forming, and if I ever see any rust in the future, I'll clean it off and apply a little bit more. Same thing with the body of the screw here. This whole part I will cover with the paste wax, buff it out to a nice hard gloss, and that should provide sufficient protection against rust. Under here I'll use a very light coat of grease, and the same thing on the screw itself. What I find is that a lot of times when you're watching these videos, people get overboard with the lubrication. If you put too much grease, it just attracts dust and dirt, and that creates almost as much problems as not using enough lubricant. So that's the way we're going to do this. Okay? So the lubricant I used for the screw and the bolts on the vise is a product called Anti-Seize. This is a graphite-based lubricant. It really works fantastic. It allows for smooth operation. Every time you open and close the vise, it's really, really nice and smooth. Anyways, the vise is finished now. When it was all said and done, I ended up putting a lot of time into this project, more than I anticipated. It wasn't one of those things where you just did it over the course of an afternoon. I have a lot of time spent on it, but I think the end result was worth it. It really came out looking nice, and in spite of the fact that it's going to get beat, it's going to get chipped up, I'm going to use the vise for what it's intended for. Nonetheless, I took the time, and I think the end result is something to be proud of. I hope you like it, and I'm looking forward to doing some more projects in the future. Thank you for watching the video.